Welcome students to SV Union High School and Junior College. Standard 5 English Prose Lesson 32 Helen Keller. Helen Keller. This is an inspiring story of a child who became completely deaf and blind before she had learned to talk. Because of her own courage and also that of a wonderful teacher, she learned to talk and write. She was able to go to school and to college and to live a full and a happy life. An inspiring account of courage, strength, determination, and hard work. The story of Helen Keller conveys the message when the going gets tough and tough gets going. Helen Keller was 18 months when Helen was just beginning to talk. She became terribly ill. This affected her eyesight and hearing too. As she was unable to hear, she could not talk. She became blind too. But with her willpower and courage and under the able guidance of her wonderful teachers, Annie Sullivan, and a special teacher, she learned to talk and write. She went to school and college and lived a full and happy life. Throughout her life, she inspired other blind people to find courage through her own example. Helen Keller is an inspiration to the whole world. She showed and she could achieve through courage, patience, and struggle. She lived a ripe old age of 88 and passed away in 1968. This is the story of a child who became completely deaf and blind before she had learned to talk. Because of her own courage and also that of her wonderful teacher, she learned to talk and write. She was able to go to school and to college and to live a full and a happy life. Helen was born in 1880 in a small town in the southern USA. At 18 months, when she was beginning to talk, she suddenly became terribly ill and very nearly died. When she recovered, she was completely deaf and blind. Doctor said that she was suffering from brain fever. When the fever subsided, she did not blink while staring at the sunlight. It is very difficult for a deaf child to learn to talk. Most babies learn by hearing other people talking, but the deaf child cannot hear anyone. So, how can she know what talking sounds like? Many deaf people learn to lip read and they become very clever at understanding what other people are saying by watching them. But Helen could not see what other people were doing. She remembered a few words she had known before she was ill. For instance, she went on calling water waw waw, but she had to make signs for most things. She would shake her head for no and nod for yes. A pull meant come and a push go. But of course, she could say very little like this, and she depended entirely on other people. Yet Helen had an active mind and a clever brain and wanted to do and say everything any other child would. She used to get into terrible tempers when she could not explain what she meant or understand what others wanted. The challenges and the hurdles ahead for the parents and the child were not easy to overcome. The years that followed were painful and traumatizing. Children refused to play with her, and Helen became an ill tempered person with a heavy heart. Her mother would say, Helen's behavior is getting worse. When Helen was 18 months old, she was just beginning to talk. She suddenly became terribly ill and very nearly to die. When Helen was nearly 7, Annie Sullivan came to teach her and look after her. This clever and devoted teacher challenged Helen's life. Annie had worked on Helen's behavior too. Helen was rude to people. Annie Sullivan herself had been nearly blind and had been at a school for the blind people. There, Annie Sullivan had learnt the finger spelling method. She felt sure that this was the only way to talk to Helen and teach her to say what she wanted. Because Helen could not see her making the signs, she would spell the word onto her pupil's hand. Helen had become very sensitive to feel of things, much more sensitive than most people are. She could soon tell the difference between the feel of one letter and another. Annie started teaching Helen to fingerspell. She taught her the language of touch. Annie had to work on Helen's behavior too. Helen was rude to people. Annie insisted Helen should dress herself and brush her own hair. So she hated the idea of Annie becoming angry with her, that is, Helen. Miss Sullivan gave Helen a doll, and when she gave it, she spelled the letters DOLL doll onto Helen's hand. She did this with the names of other things such as CAKE cake and MUG mug. Helen obediently spelled them back, but she did not understand what it all meant, and soon she grew bored and unhappy. She would not try any more, and poor Annie Sullivan did not know what to do next. Then one day, Miss Sullivan took Helen outside to the water pump. As the water spilled into Helen's mug and overflowed on her hand, Miss Sullivan spelled WATER, water, on her other hand. Suddenly, Helen's face lit up. She understood that WATER, water, was the name of this cold, wet stuff, and it came to her in a flash that everything has a name. The day Helen learned to spell water, a new inspiration set in. That experience changed her attitude towards learning. Annie taught her to spell BABY, baby, when Helen touched her younger sister. Touching her little sister, she spelled BABY, which was one of the words Miss Sullivan had shown her. All that day and for days after, Helen darted from one thing to the next, demanding that Miss Sullivan should spell their names for her. She became so excited she could hardly control herself. At last, words began to have a meaning for her. That day, Helen was so inspired that within the next few hours, she then learned the names of actions as well as things. SIT, STAND stand, RUN run, WALK walk, and then descriptions of the things and actions. HARD hard, SOFT soft, QUICKLY quickly, SLOWLY slow. From then on, she was able to learn as any child does. Only Helen spelled words with fingers instead of saying them aloud. Although she made noises, she still could not talk. Annie began to teach Helen to read. She first read raised letters. Now that she had started to learn, Helen, with her quick brain and good memory, learned very fast indeed. She learned to spell words incredibly fast, and soon she and her beloved teacher could have long conversations. Wherever they went, Miss Sullivan described things to her and told her what people were saying. Helen soon learned to write on a special frame with ridges to keep the line straight, and later she learned to type. She began to read braille books. Next thing was to learn to talk aloud. For this, she had a special teacher who taught her how to move her lips and tongue. Helen quickly learned to talk also and to listen to people speaking by putting her sensitive fingers on their lips and throats. This meant that she could talk with people who did not know the fingers spellings method so long as they spoke distinctly. All this was hard work, needing endless patience by both pupil and teacher, and long practice. In the time, she could talk, read, and write, and even learn to speak French and German. Now, Helen was determined to go to university and take a degree. I had been a little ghost in a no world. Now I knew my name. I was a person. Helen had even learned to speak French and German. Now Helen was determined to go to the university and take a degree. When she was 20, she sat for the entrance examination of Radcliffe College, one of the best colleges in America. The papers were set in braille and she typed her answer. Of course, she could not read what she had written. She had to take a chance that she had made no mistakes. She had no difficulty in passing the examination and entering the Radcliffe College. The teacher spelled out the questions in Helen's hand and Helen typed out the answers. She learned to write with both ordinary as well as braille typewriters. She was given all possible opportunities to develop her abilities, and she even visited President Cleveland at the White House. In 1890, at the age of about 10, Helen moved to the Perkins Institution. Helen made friends with other blind children in the institution. She learned Latin, German, and arithmetic. In 1894, Helen and Annie met John D. Wright and Dr. Thomas Humeson, who were planning to set up a school to teach speech to the deaf in the New York City. Helen attended the Wright Humeson School of the Deaf. Helen wished to study in college, but before that, she had to take admission in another school that would prepare her for college. Mark Twain, the famous author of Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and some of his friends paid for her education. In 1896, Helen moved to the Cambridge School for Young Ladies in Massachusetts, who was blind, deaf, and could barely produce sounds for communication. Helen worked hard at school and did not disappoint her benefactors. She began writing poems and stories shortly before her examination. The following week, she learned that she had passed all subjects. In 1900, Helen entered Radcliffe College, becoming the first deaf blind person to have ever enrolled at an institution of higher learning. Helen became the first deaf blind person to earn a Bachelor of Art degree. Helen now felt that she must educate people on the ways to help blind, but also start projects to remove darkness from the lives of other blind people. Miss Sullivan was with Helen all through her time at the university. In the end, this girl, who at 7 had lived in a dark world, unable to hear or speak, won high university honors. Throughout her life, she helped other blind people to find courage. She traveled all over the world, inspiring everyone by her example. Helen Keller lived a ripe old age of 88. She passed away in 1968. Helen Keller wrote her own life story, the book named as Helen Keller, The Story of My Life.